Our next guest didn't start out in the career that she now has. She's an advocate in her own right. She is advocating for diversity, for representation, using her voice in the way that she knows how and using the skills that she has acquired. But she actually started out in business. But what she's doing is literally groundbreaking, life-changing in terms of showing us ourselves in every way that she can. She is the co-host. She is the founder of the Kultur'd show. She also has a media platform called Future Media, which represents Canadian, South Asian online fashion, or online lifestyle, online entertainment. And I'm going to invite her up, Meera Estrada, to come up and tell us more about who she is, what she does, and her incredible story. Meera Estrada.
The story is about a man named Govind Solanki. This man was born in 1912 in a small village in Gujarat, India. He was not only born into a poor family, he was born into what is called a low caste family. And not only a low caste family, the lowest caste of them all. He is what is called an untouchable. Because of this very low caste in society, Govind, as well as all of his family members, were not allowed to attend school. Even if they wanted to learn, this was not acceptable. They had to sit outside of a classroom and listen, but to do so meant humiliation. So Govind, like most of his other friends, decided this was not for them. Instead, like the other people in his family, he worked hard, meager jobs for little pay. He did go on to get married. He had 4 children, 3 daughters and a son. He worked very hard all his life, but he remained in poverty. And he was stricken with illness at a very young age, which led to his very early death, leaving behind a young widow and his 4 children. What he died from was not an incurable disease. He did not have something grave that was so afflicting to him. What Govind had was asthma. Yes, he had asthma. Something for which there is medication, which is very treatable. Even back then, it was very treatable. But when you are poor, these are the things that you die from. By the next generation, things for the untouchables, or Dalits as they are called, improved slightly, not very much. Children were allowed to attend school, but the humiliation continued. Segregation. Children were forced to sit at the back of the classroom. More humiliation. They were not allowed to drink water in school. These children are not allowed to drink water from the school well. This is India. This is scorching heat. So, while the other children would drink water all day long, the untouchable children would wait until the end of the day for their thirsty lips to have some water. Some, when very thirsty, would run home. Their filthy lower-class lips could not dare touch the same cup as the higher caste children. Vimal, who's Govind's son, actually did quite well in school, despite all of this. And like many other young boys, he was quite mischievous and curious. One night, there was a village prayers being held in an outdoor market. Outdoor markets are a good thing. Lower caste children or anyone are not allowed in temples. They're not allowed in other people's homes. So Vimal, being the smart little boy that he is, said, "Come on guys, let's go to this. It's outside. What can happen?" So they went. These few boys went to this outdoor market, which was supposedly supposed to be prayers. And they happily went and they sat at the back, where they thought that would be okay. But some other people saw them there, and they scolded them, and they said, "You're not allowed to be here." Vimal's cousin said, "We are allowed to be here. It's outdoors." But having a voice for untouchables was not acceptable. An elderly brought the boys to the front of the congregation, He took the boy and slapped him fiercely. This was meant to be a public shaming. This is a lesson for all of you. The boys were ordered to leave. They were outcasts. They were the backward class. They actually had to write BC after their names to be identified this way. These boys were not welcome. These untouchables were not welcome, not there, not anywhere. The shame of that one particular incident changed the trajectory of Wimmel's thinking and his life there on out. Wimmel began to resent the treatment of his elders and the humiliation that him and his families continued to endure. He actually went to finish his primary school, went on to high school, and then went to get a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry as well. He was the only child in his village that got that far in his education. He then went on to become a teacher at that same high school he attended. In 1976, he married a beautiful woman. Her family had fled India to East Africa to search for better life there, building a new identity, and she was studying in England at that time. The pair resolved to never suffer that same fate as those before them, adamant in the belief that the one thing that can change destiny is education. The both of them studied ferociously. The wife became a midwife, and Wimmel furthered his education even more with a second degree. Wimmel was determined to carve his own path and create his own identity. That young man, Wimmel Selenki, is my father. And I tell you this because it has shaped my life. When I was 15 years old, my parents actually sat my brother and I down, and they said, "We have something very grave to share with you." They told us about our family lineage and that we were untouchables. I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. Untouchable? What's that? I'm not an untouchable, I'm a princess. I literally, up to that point, joked that I was royalty because we'd read it in the history books. There was a King Solanki and he had a dynasty. This is all true, you can Google it. But what's also true, and there wasn't Google back then, was of the royalty's fall from grace, which I didn't know about. And while my parents at that time didn't share all the details of what they had endured, they said, "Meera, you have to work extra hard. You have to be that much better because the world is not in your favor and people are going to judge you for who you are." At that age, I brushed it off. This was some antiquated notion. But I started to see things differently. I started to notice that people do talk about caste and creed. I started to notice the racist remarks, the shadeism, the colorism. I even started to notice people asking me point blank, "What caste are you?" To which I just would reply, "I don't believe in that." Sometimes the comments would even come praising me for my high place in society while degrading lower castes, just assuming that I was like them. To as recent as last year, a friend, who is now being downgraded to an acquaintance, who had just come back from India, going through surrogacy, and was telling me, I would never go to India and have a lower caste woman carry my baby because I wouldn't want my children to be stupid. And this was here in Canada. This was last year. This was somebody who I thought was a friend of mine. And it was a major turning point for me where I told my parents, I have to speak up. This still exists. It not only exists in India still, these ideas exist here. And we have to discredit them. And so while I distanced myself from all of this, it had also become part of my identity. In school, like my parents, I also worked extremely hard. And a big part of that was I didn't want to let them down. When it came time for university, like Sandra said, the picking was mine, and I desperately, desperately wanted to go to journalism school. But my parents, with the best of intentions, advised me against it. I remember my dad sitting down saying, "Beta, there are no brown people telling the news. Go to business school, do accounting." And this was 20 years ago, and it was true. Completely disheartened, but also having full faith in my parents, I met them halfway. I conceded, I went to the school of business. I did refuse to do accounting. I got a major in marketing. I needed some creativity in my life. And I went on to a very rewarding career in media, on the business side, in television advertising. I made great money, an amazing 6-figure salary, great perks, life was good, but there was always something missing. That passion for storytelling would not relent. So I ended up doing a post-grad in journalism, and I started my magazine on the side, Fuchsia, which I have told you all about. And there, I changed my identity for myself. I was a successful businesswoman on the rise to the top. But nothing is picture perfect. And for me, my entire identity came crashing to a halt 11 years ago. February 16th, 2008 to be exact. My then boyfriend at the time and I were away on a beautiful Caribbean cruise. 2 days into the cruise, ship had just docked. We were planning on renting scooters. My boyfriend was saying, "How are you gonna go on a scooter in those heels?" Anyone that knows me knows I'm always wearing heels. That's the last thing I remember. I woke up, I'm in a hospital bed. I have heart monitors, oxygen, electrodes all over my body. Do you know your name? Meera. Do you know the month? No. Do you know where you are? No. Do you know anything? No. Where do you work? I don't know. I did not know anything. I don't know what happened. I actually thought I was going to die. I was in complete disarray of what was going on. My head was shaking. I felt disoriented. I had lost control of my bowels. It was a disaster. At that point, I was told that I had just suffered my first grand mal seizure. I was taken by ambulance to the nearest hospital, admitted, and after several days in the hospital overseas, I came home, had tests done at home, driver's license was taken away. 1 year's medical driver's license suspension, as what happens when you have a seizure. A huge blow for me. First off, working in television sales, having that freedom go, but then for anyone that knows, seizure medications are strong. Beyond the physical side effects, I was literally vomiting every hour on the hour. But then once I went back to work in a few weeks, I started to see the mental side effects. I would go into a boardroom meeting, and sit down, and suddenly I had no idea what client I was presenting for. I would pick up the phone to call a colleague. I didn't know their name. Sometimes I didn't know their extension. I remember calling my mom endless amounts of time in tears. "I don't know why I came to work today, Mom. I did not have a creative bone in my body. My entire career is creative. Television advertising is creative. Writing is creative." And I thought, I can't continue with my career. I don't know what to do. I barely know, I don't know anybody's name that I work with. I don't know any of my clients' projects that I'm doing. Everything who I was escaping me. So back to the neurologist, back to more medications. The first year of diagnosis was awful. It is very hard to find the right balance of medication. But after that year, I got my license back, was feeling good. 2 weeks later, the next one hit. That time I was in the shower by myself. It was a bad one. Grand mal seizures are hard. You take a hard fall, hopefully it's not a dangerous one. There is the horrible convulsing, the stiffness, I've almost bitten right through my tongue at some points. The bruising is horrible. You look like you're being battered to the bone. And for me, it takes me about 45 minutes to wake up, but then it takes me about 2 weeks to fully have my mental capacity back again. So I've lost my driver's license 3 times now. After that second one, I really realized life had changed for me. Having seizures means that you have to make sure you get enough sleep. Don't get overtired, don't get overstressed, eat at proper times, no flashing lights. You don't want to do anything that will trigger another seizure. So I stopped going out to parties because I wouldn't want to be up late at night. But then I would stay up all night worrying anyways. And then I would try to sleep in the daytime, worrying even more that I hadn't slept enough at night. And then my whole life suddenly just revolved around seizures. When is the next seizure going to hit? I would wake up crying or gasping for air because I had dreamt I had a seizure. Instead of living, all I was doing was waiting for the next seizure to take a little bit more away from me. My new identity was now epilepsy, and it was all consuming. But as with life, all things are not lasting, and they're phases. The seizures did not stop, but I learned to stop living in their shadows. I learned to make the most of it, even seizure days. Some of my most cherished memories are actually seizure days, the parts that I remember. My now husband, my then boyfriend, who is now my husband, who actually proposed 2 years to the date of my first seizure in a somewhat twisted, beautiful way. We had a beautiful wedding, and we even had the miracle of 2 healthy, beautiful children who, I had seizures during my pregnancies, after the kids were born, and now my relationship with seizures have changed. Now I think of my kids, and sometimes we'll be walking down the stairs, and I always make sure to walk in front of them, and I hold their hands ever so lightly, so should I fall, they will not come stumbling down with me. But I pray, and I have faith, and God listens. And since my diagnosis, I have had 20 grand mal seizures. And this May, I will be approaching 1 year seizure-free. But that's okay. I'm always counting these milestones, but I've now come to accept that they'll be short-lived. Because like life's many lessons, I've learned the lesson of acceptance. And the biggest lesson I have learned is that I am not my circumstances. Me and only me alone can define my identity. So 2 years ago, I made a drastic career change. I left that cushy corporate world to dedicate myself full-time to my journalism pursuits and passions, finally. Career-wise, I feel more fulfilled now than I have ever felt before. My bank account might tell you otherwise, but I am speaking, I am writing, I am hosting this amazing radio show, and my heart is so full because I am following my purpose. Everybody has a story. This is mine. My story has taught me to never judge, to never look at anyone with envy or scorn for their easy life, or pity for their dreary one, because I actually do not have a clue about it beyond what I see on the surface. And there is always, always more than meets the eye. We don't know what anyone has gone through until we walked a mile in their shoes. So I ask all of you to take a moment and think, what is it that defines you? Is it your appearance? Is it your background? What defines you and makes you who you are? Because we all have challenges, but it's how we deal with them and the outlook we choose for those circumstances that can make us or break us. Because am I going to let some rubbish caste system and the bigotry of others weigh me down? No. Am I going to let the fear of seizures keep me bubble wrapped in a room when I can be roaming the world or be standing here with you? No, I'm going to let my goals, my dreams, my passions, my achievements, and my success define me. We can be grateful for the things that we do have. Those are the things that define us. Because yes, I was born an untouchable, but I am still a queen. And yes, I have epilepsy, but guess what? I get to sleep in later than most of you. So if there is one thing that you can take away from this, I ask you to see that you are not your circumstances. You are your possibilities. You are what you dream to be possible, and you define your identity. I define who I am. I am unstoppable, and so are you.